Now, May is a really good time to assess your garden and look out for pockets of shade. It's just the time when the leaves are starting to come on the trees, so things like this birch are just beginning to come into leaf properly, and you can see where the areas of dappled shade are in your plot. You can also see how high the sun is in the sky and which areas are going to be in part shade. That means getting sun for part of the day, either the morning or the afternoon, or a combination of both. And then which areas really are going to be problematic and are in deep shade. One of the big problems is a lot of people assess their garden at the key planting times. So the main planting time in the year is somewhere between October and March. And we look at the garden and we consider the amount of light that the garden's getting at that particular time of year, and we think, well, that area is in really deep shade, I need to plant shade-loving plants. But the thing is that not only does the sun change during the course of the day, but the sun and its elevation and its position in the sky changes through the course of the year. So let's look at some of the places in the garden where we might have shade of different sorts at different times of year. So I've already mentioned trees, and as they're coming into leaf, they will tend to cast more shade than they would do during the winter months. Also, the other thing to consider is buildings. Now, walls and house walls, fences, all those sorts of things, structures in the garden, they provide shade at certain times of day, but also different types of shade as the year progresses. And a tall wall of about 10 feet may cast really deep shade a long way over the garden during the winter months, but by the time you get through to the summer, the height of the sun in the sky, it means that it's much higher in the sky, so the angle of the sun coming down reduces the amount of shade. And as I say, we'll look at that later on in the masterclass itself. This plant, if you look at its label, actually says that this Geum pink petticoats is suitable for a sunny, well-drained position. That's the information that's on the label. What it doesn't actually say is that Geum does really well in part shade, so a part of the garden that gets shaded for part of the day. So it's really important that you do your plant research thoroughly, you assess the conditions that you have in your garden really well, so that you can judge which plants will grow really well in which parts of the garden. Now, the main thing to assess in all of this is the elevation or the height of the sun in the sky. And that, as I say, changes through the seasons, right the way through from midwinter, when the sun is at its lowest point in the sky, through until summer, when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. So in midwinter, the sun will rise in the southeast, go very, very shallowly through the sky for about 8 hours of sunlight and daylight in midwinter, and then it will set over in the southwest. And that means that anywhere that's north facing in your garden will be in shadow. But by the time we get through to midsummer, you'll find that the sun will be so high in the sky, but also instead of rising over there, in the southeast, the sun actually rises in the northeast, so in the northern part of the sky, and then it climbs through the sky very, very steeply, so the sun is shining right down into the garden and not casting as much shade, and then it will go and set over in the northwest of the sky. So that way we get very different conditions from midwinter to midsummer. And when you add in the fact that you get around about 16 hours of daylight during the summer, it makes a profound difference to the amount of light there is in different parts of your garden, and therefore what you can grow.